On one of the coldest winter nights of the year, 7-year-old Lily opened her front door and froze in terror. Two tiny puppies lay collapsed on her porch, shaking so violently they could barely breathe. Someone had left them there. She didn't think twice. She scooped them into her arms, whispering, "I'll protect you. I promise." But what she didn't know was that these weren't ordinary puppies. By the next morning, her quiet street was packed with police cars. Officers surrounded her home as if something terribly dangerous was inside. Neighbors gathered. Her parents panicked. And the little girl, she stood frozen, clutching the two puppies she had rescued. No one understood why the authorities had arrived so suddenly. What had she done wrong? Why were they here? And what those puppies were hiding shocked everyone. Stay with us, because this story will leave you speechless. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The wind howled through the tall pine trees, as if the entire forest was crying that night. Snowflakes drifted down like tiny white feathers. But the cold wasn't soft or gentle. This was the kind of cold that froze breath midair and stung through even the thickest coat. Far away from the nearest town, a small wooden cabin stood in the middle of the snowy silence, its windows glowing faintly with warm yellow light. Inside, a little girl named Lily sat curled up by the fireplace, trying to warm her tiny hands. The fire crackled softly, but even it seemed weaker than usual, as if the winter outside had stolen some of its strength. Her mother was in the kitchen, warming soup on the stove. Money had been tight, but tonight, the biggest worry was simply surviving the cold. "Stay close to the fire, sweetheart," her mother called out gently. "Tonight is colder than anything I've felt in years." Lily nodded, hugging her knees, listening to the wind pound against the cabin walls. There was a stillness in the air, an uneasy silence that made even the fire's warmth feel fragile. Lily's gaze drifted to the frosty window. She wiped a small circle with her palm and peeked outside. Everything was quiet, white, and unmoving. The snow was piled so high it covered half the wooden railing. The trees stood stiff, frozen where they were. It looked like a world where time had stopped. She sighed softly. Nights like these always made her feel lonely. Winter break meant no school, no friends, no visits from neighbors. Nobody traveled this far into the woods when the temperature dropped this low. The cold had a way of isolating everything, trapping everyone indoors. But even inside the cabin, something felt different tonight. Something felt heavy. Her mother joined her near the window. "Storm's getting worse," she murmured. "We'll stay inside for the night." Lily nodded again, but her eyes remained fixed on the forest. Something deep inside told her this night wouldn't be like the others. There was a strange feeling in her chest, as if the forest was holding its breath, as if something was waiting in the dark beyond the snow. She didn't know it yet, but before the night ended, the winter storm would bring something to their doorstep that would change everything. Lily had just settled back near the fireplace when it happened, so soft at first that she thought she imagined it. A tiny sound slipped through the roar of the winter storm. Not the crack of wood or the whistle of the wind. No, it was different. It was a small, trembling whimper. She lifted her head slowly. There it was again, a faint, weak cry, almost swallowed by the wind. "Mom," Lily whispered, her voice barely above her breath. "Did you hear that?" Her mother paused, listening carefully. But the storm rumbled so loudly she shook her head. "Probably just the wind, sweetheart. Don't scare yourself." But Lily wasn't convinced. Something about the sound tugged at her heart, an instinct pulling her toward the window. She stood up, wrapped her small red coat around her, and tiptoed closer. The glass was foggy again, so she wiped it with her sleeve and pressed her face against the cold surface. Nothing. Just snow swirling wildly, and the same frozen silence as before. She turned away, feeling unsure, until she heard it one more time. This time clearer. This time closer. A desperate, shivering whine. Her heart jumped. "Mom, it's coming from outside," she insisted. "It sounds like someone's crying." Her mother's brows knitted with concern. She walked to the door, cracked it open for just a second, and an icy blast slammed into the cabin, blowing snow across the floor. But even through the chaos of wind, she heard it, a fragile, pitiful little cry coming from beyond the porch. "That's not the wind," her mother murmured. Without thinking, Lily rushed forward. "I want to see." Her mother tried to stop her. "Lily, wait. It could be dangerous." But the girl was already outside, boots sinking into the snow, breath fogging instantly. The cold punched her lungs, but she pushed on, following the sound with her tiny flashlight. The beam shook in her hand, slicing through the darkness. Every step felt heavier, the wind pushing against her like invisible hands. Then she saw something move. Two small shapes curled up together beside the porch steps, barely visible under a layer of snow. The flashlight trembling in her grip, Lily stepped closer, her heart pounding. And then she gasped. Two tiny puppies, shivering so violently their bodies looked like they might break. Their fur was frozen, their eyes watery and terrified. They whimpered when they saw her, as if begging for help. For a moment, Lily forgot the cold, the storm, everything. All she saw were two lives hanging on the edge of survival, and they were crying for her. For a moment, Lily stood frozen, not from the cold, but from the shock. The two puppies were curled so tightly together it looked as if they were desperately trying to share whatever little warmth they had left. Their tiny bodies trembled uncontrollably, and their breaths came out as faint, shaky puffs of white mist. Snowflakes clung to their eyelashes, forming tiny icicles that glimmered in the flashlight's beam. "Mom!" Lily cried out, her voice shaking. "Mom, hurry!" Her mother rushed outside, pulling her coat tightly around herself. The second she spotted the puppies, her breath caught. "Oh my God, they're freezing!" Lily knelt down slowly, her hands hovering above the puppies' tiny heads. She was afraid to touch them, afraid they might break, afraid they might stop breathing. One puppy lifted its head weakly, its eyes cloudy and full of pain. It tried to let out a bark, but only a soft whine escaped its lips. The sight made Lily's heart ache so deeply she felt it in her chest. "They're so cold," she whispered. Her mother touched the puppies gently, her face tightening with worry. "They won't last much longer out here." Her voice trembled. Someone must have abandoned them. Or worse. Lily didn't want to think about that. She only knew one thing. They needed help. "Right now. Please, Mom," she pleaded, tears filling her eyes. "We have to take them inside. They'll die if we don't." Her mother hesitated, not because she didn't care, but because something felt strange. Puppies didn't just end up on a remote cabin porch in the middle of a deadly winter storm. Someone must have left them there. But who? And why here? Still, she couldn't ignore the obvious. These tiny lives were slipping away. She nodded quickly. "All right, pick one up carefully. Hold it close to your chest." Lily lifted the first puppy gently. Its body felt like ice against her arms, and she could feel its weak heartbeat fluttering rapidly. It nestled against her, as if clinging to whatever warmth she offered. Her mother grabbed the second puppy and hurried inside. As the door shut behind them, the warmth of the cabin wrapped around the freezing little bodies. Lily rushed to lay the puppy near the fireplace, rubbing its fur softly, whispering, "You're safe now, you're safe." The puppies whimpered again, this time with just a tiny hint of hope. And in that moment, Lily felt something she couldn't explain. It was as if the puppies weren't just rescued. It was as if they had been sent to her for a reason. Inside the cabin, the warmth hit the puppies immediately, but their tiny bodies were still trembling violently. Lily placed the first one gently on a soft towel near the fireplace, and her mother did the same with the second. The fire crackled louder now, as if trying its best to fight off the cold that clung stubbornly to the little creatures. Lily dropped to her knees beside them, her fingers shaking as she rubbed their fur. "Please get better," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Please." The puppies let out weak whimpers, barely audible, but enough to make her heart twist. Her mother hurried into the kitchen, returning with a bowl of warm water and a clean cloth. "We have to warm them slowly," she said gently. "If we heat them too fast, it can hurt them even more." Lily nodded, wiping her eyes. She didn't want to cry, but watching the puppies struggle made her feel helpless. She dipped the cloth into the warm water and began rubbing the smallest puppy's paws. Its toes were stiff, almost frozen solid. She worked carefully, whispering comforting words. Her mother did the same with the other one. Poor babies, what were you doing out there all alone? Lily swallowed hard. Someone left them, right? No puppy comes out in snow by itself. The thought made her chest tighten. Abandoned, freezing, terrified. It was too much for her little heart to understand. Her mother hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yes, someone probably left them. That single sentence changed something inside Lily, a quiet spark turning into a fierce determination. She looked up, eyes shining. Then we have to save them, Mom. We have to. They're mine now. I found them. Her mother gave a small, worried smile. Let's make sure they survive the night first. But Lily's mind was already made up. She didn't know who abandoned them, or why. She didn't know how the puppies ended up in the middle of a snowstorm. But she knew one thing. She wasn't going to let them suffer anymore. Not while she was here. She pulled one of the puppies closer, letting its tiny head rest in her hands. The puppy blinked weakly, its eyes softening at her touch. It's okay, Lily whispered. You don't have to be scared anymore. I promise I won't let anything happen to you. Outside, the wind screamed louder, shaking the cabin walls. Inside, a little girl made a silent vow, one that would soon pull her into a mystery far bigger than she could imagine. And for the first time, the puppies, trembling, began to slow, as if they felt safe for the very first time. As the puppies slowly began to warm, the cabin felt quieter than before, too quiet. The fire crackled softly, the wind moaned outside, and Lily whispered gentle words to the little creatures curled against her hands. But her mother wasn't watching the puppies anymore. She stood a few steps back, arms crossed, her face shifting between worry and something deeper, something she didn't want Lily to see. The moment Lily wasn't looking, her mother leaned in closer to the second puppy. She brushed aside its damp fur, inspecting it more carefully. She noticed how thin they were, how unusually small, and something else, something that made her chest tighten. A faint imprint on the puppy's neck where a collar had once been. Her heart skipped. Someone hadn't just abandoned them. Someone had taken their collars off. She forced herself to stay calm. Lily, she whispered softly, keep rubbing its paws. You're doing great. But her eyes drifted toward the frosted window again. The storm wasn't the only thing making her uneasy. Something about this entire situation didn't feel accidental. No one lived near their cabin. Travelers never came this deep into the forest during winter. And even if they did, why leave two helpless puppies right at their doorstep? Her mind raced with questions she didn't want to voice, not in front of Lily. She moved toward the window slowly, wiping the fog with her sleeve. Snow was falling hard, but in the faint reflection of moonlight, she spotted something unusual, faint marks in the snow, half covered by fresh snowfall. They didn't look like animal tracks. They were heavier, deeper, like boot prints, fresh ones. Her stomach tightened. Mom, Lily called from behind her. Are they going to be okay? Her mother quickly pushed the worry off her face and forced a soft smile. We're doing our best, sweetheart. They just need time. But inside, her nerves were screaming. Boot prints meant someone had been here recently. Someone had walked right up to their cabin. Someone had left these puppies intentionally. And the way they were left, exposed, freezing, moments from death, didn't feel like a kind act. It felt like someone was trying to get rid of them quickly, or hide them. She walked back to the puppies, kneeling beside Lily. Let's check their bodies more gently, she said. Maybe they're hurt. Together, they inspected them. No open wounds, no broken bones. But both puppies had the same faint ring on their necks, where tight collars had once been. Collars removed recently. Her mother's voice trembled despite her effort to hide it. These poor things, they've been through a lot. Lily looked up, eyes wide with worry. Why would anyone hurt them, Mom? She didn't have an answer. Not one she wanted Lily to hear. Instead, she brushed Lily's hair aside and kissed her forehead. All that matters is they're safe now. But as her gaze drifted to the dark forest outside, her heart whispered something else entirely. Whoever left those puppies out there might not be far away. And whatever they were hiding, this night was only the beginning. The storm outside only grew stronger as the night crept on. Snow hammered against the cabin windows, rattling the glass with every gust of wind. But inside, despite the fire crackling brighter now and the puppies breathing a little steadier, the air felt heavier, almost restless. Lily's mother kept glancing at the door, her fingers tapping nervously against her arm. She didn't want Lily to sense her fear, but hiding it was becoming harder with every passing minute. Lily focused on drying the puppy's fur with a soft towel. "Look, Mom," she whispered excitedly. "This one's moving more now." Her mother smiled faintly, but her eyes stayed fixed on the window. "That's good, sweetheart. Keep warming them." But something she couldn't quite explain, kept nagging at her. A presence. A feeling that someone was still out there, watching, waiting. She stepped closer to the door and pressed her ear against it. For a moment, she heard nothing but the storm. But then a crack, a sharp, brittle sound echoing from the trees. Not a branch breaking under snow. Something else. Something deliberate. Her breath caught. She backed away slowly, forcing herself to stay calm. She didn't want to scare Lily. But Lily noticed anyway. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Nothing," she lied softly. "Just checking the firewood." Except she wasn't. She walked to the back window this time, peering out through the darkness. Her eyes scanned the white landscape, the yard, the tree-line, and then she froze. Somewhere near the edge of their property, beyond the old fence, she thought she saw a movement, a faint shadow slipping behind a tree. She blinked, staring harder. But it was gone. Or maybe hidden. Her heart thudded painfully. Footprints. Puppies left at the door. Collars removed. A shadow outside. This wasn't a coincidence. She turned quickly, scanning the cabin to make sure every lock was secured. "Lily," she said quietly, "stay near the fire. Don't go near the windows." "Why?" Lily asked, confused. "It's just really cold. I don't want you catching a chill." But Lily wasn't convinced. She hugged the puppies closer, sensing the tension. Even the puppies seemed uneasy now. Their ears twitched, tiny bodies stiffening whenever the wind paused, as if listening for something outside. Then it happened. A loud thud, right against the side of the cabin. Lily jerked upright. What was that? Her mother's face drained of color. The thud came again, softer this time, as if someone or something brushed against the wooden wall. She swallowed hard. Probably just a branch, sweetheart. But she didn't believe it. And neither did Lily. The puppies let out tiny, frightened whines. The storm roared again, but the silence between the gusts now felt threatening, heavy, alive. Lily's mother moved closer to her daughter and the dogs, keeping her voice steady. "It's okay. We're safe inside." But deep down, her instincts screamed the opposite. Someone had been here tonight. Someone had left those puppies on purpose. And now, that someone might still be out there, watching their cabin in the storm, waiting for something, or someone. For a moment, the cabin was silent, too silent. The crackling fire seemed distant, the wind outside muffled, as if the whole world had paused. Lily sat with the puppies on her lap, gently stroking their fur, but something about their behavior made her pause. Just minutes ago, they were trembling from a cold. Now they were trembling for a different reason. The first puppy lifted its tiny head and stared directly at the front door. Not casually, intensely. Its ears perked, body stiff, eyes wide. The second puppy slowly mirrored the same reaction, turning its gaze toward the same spot, as if both sensed something Lily and her mother couldn't. "Mom," Lily whispered, voice shaky. "Why are they looking at the door like that?" Her mother turned and immediately felt her stomach twist. Both puppies stared at the entrance with fear, pure fear, frozen in their tiny bodies. Even their breathing changed, becoming quick, anxious little puffs. They weren't looking randomly. They were reacting. Her mother knelt beside them, placing a steady hand on one puppy's back. The moment she touched it, it flinched and pressed closer to Lily, as if her touch wasn't familiar or safe. Lily's brows furrowed. "Are they scared of you?" Her mother shook her head slowly. "No, they're scared of something else." The puppies began to whine softly, noses twitching, sniffing the air with frantic little breaths. Their small bodies leaned toward Lily as if seeking protection, but their eyes never left the front door. And then another reaction. Both puppies lowered their heads, ears flattened tight against their skulls. The fur along their spines lifted. They weren't just scared. They were recognizing something. Something dangerous. Lily felt her heart pound. Mom, what if someone's out there? Her mother didn't answer. She walked toward the door, each step careful, silent, her hand lightly touching the doorknob. Not to open it, but to feel it. Halfway there, she stopped. The metal was cold, but not the usual winter cold. This cold had a presence behind it, a pressure, a stillness. She stepped back, pulse racing. When she turned around, the puppies were both shaking violently again, but not from temperature. Their eyes locked onto the bottom crack of the door, where a sliver of black separated the cabin from the frozen world outside. One puppy let out a tiny growl, its first sound of defiance since they found it. The sound was weak, but full of warning. Lily shivered. Mom, they're acting like someone was here before, like they know that person. Her mother inhaled sharply, and that's when she realized the terrifying truth. These puppies weren't afraid of the storm. They weren't afraid of the dark. They weren't afraid of the cabin. They were afraid of whoever had left them outside. Someone they recognized. Someone dangerous enough that even tiny, freezing puppies still trembled at the memory. Her mother moved quickly, grabbing Lily's shoulders gently. Sweetheart, stay close to me, okay? Don't go anywhere alone. Lily nodded, hugging the puppies tighter. But the fear inside the cabin had already settled in. The puppies knew something. Something the mother feared. Something the winter storm outside was still hiding. The puppies' nervous, trembling didn't stop, even as Lily held them close. Their tiny hearts raced under her fingertips, and every time the wind paused outside, their heads snapped toward the door again. Something in their past, something terrifying, still clung to them like a shadow. Lily's mother finally knelt beside them, trying to calm her own breath. Let me check them again, she murmured softly. Maybe they're hurt. Maybe that's why they're scared. Lily nodded, gently transferring the smaller puppy into her mother's hands. The little creature whimpered, as if the memory of whoever last held it was still fresh. Her mother stroked its fur slowly, trying to show warmth. It's okay, little one. You're safe here. She began examining the puppy from its paws upward, checking for frostbite or hidden wounds. Lily watched closely, hugging the second puppy to her chest for comfort. That was when her mother suddenly stopped. Mom, what happened? Her mother didn't answer immediately. Her fingers had paused on the back of the puppy's neck, where the fur was slightly thinner. She brushed it aside gently, leaning closer. There, barely visible under the soft fur, was a faint mark. A pinkish indentation, shaped like a narrow circle. Not made by nature. Not an injury. A collar mark. But it wasn't normal. It wasn't the kind made by a soft, loose pet collar. This one was deep, almost too deep, as if the collar had been tight, too tight, for too long. Lily's mother swallowed hard. Sweetheart, look at this. Lily leaned forward and gasped. Why does it look like that? She didn't know how to explain it without frightening Lily, but the truth was impossible to ignore. She picked up the second puppy and carefully checked its neck too. The same mark. Same tight circular indentation. Same faded redness, as if someone had just recently ripped the collars off. Her mother's lips pressed into a thin line. These collars weren't normal collars, she murmured. It looks like someone kept them tied up, very tightly. Lily felt her stomach drop. Tied up? But why? They're just babies. Her mother didn't answer, because she was no longer looking at the puppies. She was staring at the faint symbol just above the collar mark. A small, almost invisible stamp on the puppy skin. A tiny line and circle, almost like a brand. Her heart pounded. Someone had marked them. Not like pets. Like property. She wiped her palm across her forehead, trying to steady herself. Lily, she whispered, voice trembling despite her effort to stay calm. These puppies didn't run away from home. Someone kept them, and whoever it was, they didn't want them found. Lily held the second puppy tighter, her voice barely a whisper. Mom, who would do something like that? Her mother didn't have an answer. All she had was fear rising in her chest. But deep down, she understood something terrifying. Whoever abandoned these puppies didn't want them anymore. or didn't want them discovered. And if the puppies still trembled at the door, it meant their past wasn't far behind. Something or someone was still out there. The fire burned hot, but the cabin still felt cold. Cold in a way that had nothing to do with the storm outside. Lily sat beside the puppies, stroking their fur as they huddled close to her. Their trembling had eased a little, but their eyes still darted toward the door every few minutes, as if expecting something or someone. Her mother stood near the old wooden shelf where their small TV sat. Reception was usually weak during storms, but tonight she needed distraction, anything, to drown out the heavy silence pressing against her chest. She clicked the power button, and the screen flickered with static before forming a blurry picture. The news channel came into focus. A breaking news banner crawled across the bottom of the screen. Lily barely paid attention at first, until she saw her mother's expression change. Her eyebrows lifted, her lips parted, and her body stiffened as she leaned closer, eyes narrowing with fear. "Mom, what's wrong?" Lily whispered. "She'll listen," her mother said in a tense voice. The reporter's voice cracked through the static. Authorities continue searching for suspects involved in an illegal animal trafficking ring operating near the northern forest regions. Lily sat up straighter. Officers discovered several abandoned crates along the main highway. Many animals were found malnourished, some only weeks old. Her mother's heart dropped. Crates. Animals. Weeks old. Her eyes slowly drifted toward the puppies curled against Lily's arms. Authorities warn that the suspects may still be hiding in remote areas to avoid detection. Residents in woodland cabins are urged to stay alert and report any strange activity. Remote areas. Woodland cabins. That was exactly where they were. Lily's breath caught as she looked at her mother. "Mom, the puppies." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Her mother nodded grimly. The pieces were lining up too perfectly. Collars too tight. Identical marks. Puppies left on their doorstep. Fresh boot prints outside. Strange noises in the dark. This wasn't random. Someone from that trafficking ring had been nearby, maybe even hiding in the forest surrounding their home. Maybe they left the puppies behind because they were slowing them down. Or maybe they planned to come back for them. The puppies whimpered suddenly, pressing into Lily's arms. The moment they heard the voice coming from the TV, deep, rough, urgent, they tensed, as if the tone reminded them of something awful. Lily's mother quickly muted the TV, realizing even the sound frightened them. The storm groaned outside. A branch snapped. Snow slammed against the window so hard it rattled the walls. Her mother drew a shaky breath. "Lily, whatever happens tonight, do not open the door. Do you understand?" Lily nodded, hugging the puppies close. "Are we in danger?" Her mother didn't answer directly. She just knelt beside her daughter and pulled her close, staring at the dark window that reflected both the firelight and her fear. If the news was true, and everything pointed to it, they weren't just sheltering two freezing puppies. They were sheltering evidence. Evidence someone dangerous might be looking for. And the storm outside wouldn't hide them forever. The night deepened, and the storm outside grew even more violent. Wind slammed against the cabin walls like a giant trying to break in, and snow piled high against the porch railing. Lily stayed near the fire, both puppies tucked safely in her lap. Their breathing was steadier now, but their ears twitched at every small sound. Her mother moved silently around the cabin, checking locks again and again, windows, back door, front door, every latch. But no matter how secure she made the cabin, an uneasy feeling crawled up her spine. The news, the marks on the puppies, the footsteps outside. Something wasn't right. It was just past midnight when it happened. The fire had settled into a low glow, and Lily was finally dozing off against her mother's shoulder. The storm had momentarily calmed, replaced by a strange, eerie quiet. The kind of quiet that didn't feel natural. Then, thud. Both puppies shot upright at the same time, their tiny bodies stiff, ears pointed sharply toward the door. Lily jerked awake. "Mom, what was that?" Her mother didn't answer. Her body froze, every muscle tightening. She stepped closer to the door, each footstep slow and careful. Another sound. Crunch, crunch. Heavy footsteps in the snow. Right outside their home. Lily's heart pounded. Is it an animal? Her mother shook her head. Animals don't walk like that. The footsteps grew clearer, circling the cabin. Slow, deliberate, like someone inspecting every corner. The puppies whimpered and buried themselves under Lily's arms. One of them let out a tiny growl, barely a whisper, but full of fear. Her mother grabbed the iron poker from the fireplace and held it tightly in her trembling hands. She moved toward the window, lifting the curtain just a fraction. Her breath caught. A shadow, tall, still, standing right by the porch. Not an animal, not a neighbor, not someone lost in the storm. Someone waiting. The shadow turned slowly toward the window, as if sensing her eyes. Her heart lurched, and she dropped the curtain instantly, pressing a hand to her mouth to stop a gasp from escaping. Lily whispered, "Mom, is someone out there?" Her mother knelt beside her, trying to steady her shaking voice. "Sweetheart, listen to me carefully. Stay quiet. Don't move." Then, a new sound. The doorknob shook. Once, twice, then harder, as if someone was testing it, trying to see if it would open. The puppies cried out softly, their tiny bodies trembling violently. Lily clutched them tighter, tears gathering in her eyes. "Mom, I'm scared." Her mother pulled her daughter close, gripping her protectively. "It's okay. I'm right here." But inside, she was terrified. Whoever was outside wasn't lost. They weren't asking for help. They were searching for something inside the cabin. And deep down, she already knew the truth. They were searching for the puppies. Seconds felt like hours until suddenly, silence. The footsteps stopped. The doorknob stilled. The shadow disappeared. But the fear remained. Because whoever had come to their cabin wasn't finished. For several minutes after the doorknob stopped shaking, the cabin remained painfully silent. Lily clung to the puppies, their tiny bodies trembling against her chest. Her mother stayed crouched beside her, staring at the door as if expecting it to burst open at any second. The fire crackled weakly, its light flickering across the room, stretching their shadows long and thin across the wooden floor. The storm outside had quieted again, but this silence wasn't peaceful. It felt like someone holding their breath in the dark. Finally, Lily's mother forced herself to move. She stood slowly, her legs shaking beneath her, and whispered, "Lily, stay here. Don't leave this spot." Lily nodded, hugging the puppies tightly. Their ears twitched, but they didn't look at the door anymore. They looked at Lily's mother, sensing the fear in her steps. Her mother stepped carefully toward the kitchen, where the old landline phone hung on the wall. She picked it up with trembling hands, praying there was still service. The storm often knocked out the power lines. She pressed the receiver to her ear. A small click. A weak dial tone. Thank God. She punched in the emergency number with shaking fingers, glancing over her shoulder at the door every few seconds, terrified the shadow might return. Her voice wavered as soon as the operator answered. "Hello, this is Emily Harper. I live in a cabin off Ridgewood Forest Road. I need help. Someone was just outside my home." The operator's voice grew alert. "Ma'am, is the person still there?" I don't know," Emily whispered, lowering her voice so Lily wouldn't hear her fear. "They tried the door, they were circling the house. And there's something else." She hesitated, swallowing the knot in her throat. "We found 2 puppies outside. They were nearly frozen. They have marks on them, tight collars, almost like they were tied up. There were footprints outside. I think someone left them here. Maybe from the trafficking news you reported." There was a pause on the line, followed by a sharp shift in tone. "Ma'am, stay inside. Officers are being dispatched to your location now. Do not open the door for anyone except uniformed police." Emily closed her eyes, relief soaking into her trembling voice. "Thank you, please hurry." She hung up and turned back toward the living room. Lily looked up, eyes wide, searching her mother's face for answers. "Are they coming?" Lily whispered. Emily knelt beside her, pulling her close. "Yes, sweetheart. They're on their way. We just have to stay calm." But deep inside, she knew the truth. Whoever had been outside might come back, and they needed to survive until help arrived. The night dragged on like it would never end. Every creak of wood, Every whistle of wind, every shifting shadow made Lily and her mother jump. The puppies barely slept, their tiny bodies curled tightly against Lily, as if they feared being taken away again. Emily, her mother, didn't close her eyes once. She sat awake, listening for any sound outside, gripping the fireplace poker in her hands. Hours crawled by. Finally, a faint light began to bleed into the darkness. Dawn. The storm had calmed, leaving the world outside buried beneath a heavy blanket of white snow. The sky glowed faintly pink, and the air outside was still too still. Emily stood quietly and approached the window, her breath held tight. She wiped a clear circle on the frosted glass and peered outside. Then her heart nearly stopped. Not from fear this time, but from relief. A police SUV was slowly making its way down the narrow snowpack path leading to their cabin. Another vehicle followed, and another, then a fourth. Blue and red lights flashed silently through the trees, reflecting off the snow in eerie streaks of color. "They're here," Emily whispered, her voice cracking. Lily shot up from the floor. "Really? They came?" "Yes," her mother breathed. "They really came." Within minutes, the quiet woods outside the cabin transformed into a scene of controlled urgency. Officers stepped out of their vehicles, boots crunching loudly through the snow, talking into radios, scanning the tree line. Some approached the cabin, while others spread out to secure the area. Lily clutched the puppies as a loud knock echoed through the cabin. "Sheriff's Department. You're safe. Please open the door." Emily hesitated for a second, fear still clinging to her. But then she unlatched the lock and pulled the door open a few inches. An officer in a winter jacket and uniform stepped forward. "Ma'am, Emily Harper." She nodded shakily. "We got your call. Are you and the child okay?" "Yes, we're okay," Emily whispered. "But someone was here last night, someone dangerous." "We believe you," he said firmly. "That's why we brought backup." Lily peeked from behind her mother, holding the puppies close. The officer softened his tone. "And those must be the pups." Emily stepped aside, letting the officers enter. The warmth of the cabin washed over them, but the air still felt heavy with tension. Two officers moved through the house quickly, checking doors and windows. Another officer knelt beside Lily. "You're very brave," he said gently. "You helped save these little ones." Lily didn't smile. She whispered, "Are the bad people coming back?" The officer's expression changed, slightly, but enough to reveal concern. "We're going to do everything we can to keep you safe." Outside, more officers scanned the forest with flashlights and thermal scanners, forming a protective perimeter around the cabin. Emily finally felt her knees weaken, not from fear, but from the weight of relief. They weren't alone anymore. The danger wasn't gone, but help had finally arrived. And the truth, the full, frightening truth behind the puppies, was about to be uncovered. Inside the small cabin, the officers formed a quiet circle around the living room. The fire glowed softly, flickering shadows across the wooden walls. Lily sat on the floor, the two puppies curled safely in her lap. Their tiny bodies were still trembling, but the fear in their eyes began to soften under the room's warmth. One of the senior officers, a tall man with a thick winter coat and a serious expression, knelt beside them. He examined the puppies closely, lifting them gently, turning them slightly to inspect their necks, their paws, their fur. When he reached the faint circular collar marks, his eyes darkened. "Just as we feared," he murmured. Emily stepped closer. "What do you mean? What's wrong with them?" The officer looked up, his expression grave. "Ma'am, these puppies aren't strays. They're part of an active case we've been working on." Lily's small voice trembled. "A case? Like a crime?" The officer nodded slowly. "A very serious one." He motioned to another officer, who handed him a small tablet. He turned the screen toward Emily. The news headline displayed was clearer than what she had seen on her old TV. "Animal trafficking ring expands. Rare breeds found in illegal crates." Emily's breath caught. "Rare breeds." He pointed toward the puppies. "These two are part of that group. We've been trying to track down a smuggler who escaped into the woods last night after abandoning several crates. We believe he fled into this region, possibly passing directly through your property." Lily hugged the puppies protectively. "But why did he leave them at our door?" The officer lowered his voice. "These traffickers don't treat animals as living beings. They treat them as merchandise. If any animal becomes too cold, too weak, or too noisy, they get rid of it. Fast. Your cabin was probably the closest shelter in the storm. The suspect likely thought they'd freeze before anyone found them." Emily felt her heart twist painfully. "That monster." The officer continued, "But there's something else. These markings," he pointed again to the faint brand near their necks. "This symbol is used by one specific group. It means these puppies were tagged for transport. The collars were removed quickly, probably when the smuggler panicked." Lily stared at the puppies with tearful eyes. "So they were hurt? They were scared because of that man." "Yes," the officer said gently. "They remember him. That's why they reacted so strongly when someone approached your house last night." Emily stiffened. "So it was the smuggler." "We believe so," he confirmed. "He might have come back to look for the animals, or to see if anyone witnessed him." Lily hugged the puppies tighter. "He can't take them back. They'll die if he does." The officer placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "He won't. Not now. We're searching the woods as we speak. He won't get far." Emily exhaled shakily. "So these puppies, they were part of something horrible." "Yes," the officer said quietly. "But because you found them, because you acted so fast, you didn't just save them." He paused, looking at both the girl and her mother with gratitude. "You may have helped us break open the entire trafficking ring." The room fell silent. Lily looked down at the puppies resting in her arms, finally understanding the weight of what they had been through. They weren't just lost. They weren't abandoned. They were survivors, rescued by a little girl who refused to leave them in the cold. The cabin felt warmer now, not because of the fire, but because of the sense of safety slowly returning. Officers continued moving in and out, speaking softly into their radios, but inside the living room, everything was still. Lily sat with the puppies curled against her chest, their breathing finally calm, their tiny noses tucked into her sweater, as if it were the safest place in the world. One of the officers approached her with a gentle smile. He was younger than the others, with kind eyes that softened when he saw the puppies resting peacefully. "You know," he said quietly, crouching down to her level, "you did something incredibly brave last night." Lily blinked, confused. I just didn't want them to freeze." He nodded. "And because you didn't walk away, because you cared enough to bring them inside, they're alive right now." He motioned to the puppies. Most children wouldn't step out into a storm. Most adults wouldn't either. Emily sat beside her daughter, brushing her fingers through Lily's hair. "This little girl has a big heart," she said softly. The officer smiled. "Bigger than you know." He shifted his gaze to Lily again. "Do you understand what these puppies went through? They were trapped, tied, mistreated, and still, they survived until you found them. You gave them something they've never had before." "What?" Lily whispered. "A chance." Lily looked down at the pups, her eyes warm with emotion. They were no longer trembling. They were no longer staring at the door in fear. They simply lay against her, trusting her completely. "They knew you were safe," the officer continued. "Maybe that's why they didn't give up in the snow. Maybe they were trying to get to you." Emily exhaled shakily. "She saved them," she murmured. "I'm just glad we opened that door." Another officer stepped inside with news that the search teams had found more tracks in the woods. The smuggler was close, too close, but the officers were confident they would catch him soon. But for now, their attention shifted back to the little girl who had unknowingly become a hero. "Lily," the officer said, a soft pride in his voice, "dogs have instincts. Strong ones. They trust those who are good. Last night, in the middle of that storm, they found the only person who wouldn't turn them away." Lily's eyes glistened. "They were so cold. I couldn't just leave them." "And that," the officer said with certainty, "is what saved their lives." For the first time since the terrifying night began, Lily smiled. A small, warm smile filled with relief and love. The puppies nuzzled closer to her. In that moment, everyone in the cabin saw it clearly. She wasn't just a little girl who found two freezing dogs. She was the reason they were breathing at all. As the morning sun climbed higher, its soft rays pierced through the frosted windows, filling the small cabin with gentle light. The officers had finished their sweep of the woods, and though the smuggler had not yet been caught, they had narrowed his trail. Patrol teams remained nearby, promising to guard the area until he was found. Inside, the atmosphere had changed completely. The fear that once gripped the cabin had slowly melted away, replaced with warmth, relief, and something Lily hadn't felt since the storm began: hope. The puppies now lay curled in a blanket beside the fireplace, their tiny bellies rising and falling peacefully. They looked nothing like the trembling, frozen creatures Lily had found the night before. Their fur was warmer, softer, and their eyes, once filled with terror, now glimmered with trust. Emily knelt beside Lily, gently squeezing her hand. "You did more for them than anyone else could have," she whispered. "They're safe because of you." Lily smiled shyly, looking at the puppies with pure affection. "I just wanted to help them." A knock at the door interrupted her words. An officer stepped inside, the cold air swirling around him. "Ma'am," he said softly, "we've spoken with Animal Rescue. They want to take the puppies in for medical care and temporary shelter." Lily's small shoulders fell. "Oh." The officer noticed her expression and quickly added, "But they also said something else." Lily looked up, eyes wide. "They said these puppies have formed a strong bond with you. They calm when you touch them. They follow you with their eyes. They trust you." He smiled gently. "If you and your mother want, you can apply to foster them. Maybe even adopt them permanently." Lily gasped, her heart leaping. "Really? They can stay with us." Emily looked at her daughter, at the excitement shining in her eyes, and then at the puppies sleeping peacefully. It felt right. It felt natural. It felt like fate. She nodded. "Yes, sweetheart. If you want them, we'll take care of them together." Lily threw her arms around her mother, tears of joy spilling down her cheeks. The puppies stirred, lifting their tiny heads, and when Lily leaned down to kiss them gently, they wagged their little tails for the very first time. The officer chuckled. "Looks like they already know they're home." Warmth blossomed in the cabin, deeper, brighter than the fire's glow. The storm outside had brought fear, danger, and darkness, but it had also brought something unexpected: a family. Not two, but four. Emily wrapped her arms around Lily as they watched the puppies snuggle back into the blanket. The night had tested them. The morning had healed them. And now a new chapter was beginning, one filled with safety, love, and two little lives who had finally found their forever home. This story teaches us that even the smallest act of kindness can create a powerful chain of good. One little girl's decision to help two helpless puppies didn't just save their lives. It helped uncover a serious crime and brought justice to many suffering animals. It reminds us to never ignore someone in need, no matter how small or weak they seem. Compassion, courage, and doing the right thing, even when it's scary, can lead to incredible outcomes. When we choose kindness, we become a light for others, and sometimes that light can change far more lives than we ever expect.